My task today is to provide you with an overview on the establishment of the legal framework and also as regards the situation on partnership agreements and programs. I think we all were very relieved when in December 2013 the Basic Act, the Rule Development Regulation 1305 was published, but as already said, work is still ahead and we are now in the process of finalizing the Delegated and Implementing Acts, and if everything works according to the schedule, we will have them in place and published by July 2014. This is for the Delegated and the Implementing Act. How is the situation for these different legal acts which we are preparing? First of all, the Delegated Act for Rural Development. As regards the process, we have had 8 meetings in the expert groups. We have had the inter-service consultation, which we have finalized on the 14th of January this year. Tomorrow we will have another meeting of the expert groups where we will continue our work, and the Commission has envisaged to adopt the Delegated Act in time this spring, in order to allow that the Act is adopted before the recess period with the European Parliament, because we want to have this legal act published after the expiry of the 2+2 period. This is a period the Parliament and the Council have to analyze the Delegated Act, and also in case they are not satisfied during this period, they have the possibility to reject the Delegated Act. So, and this period will then lead us to, if everything works well, to a publication in July 2014. The Delegated Act comprises around 20 articles and 2 annexes, and now I would like to present some indications on the content of this Delegated Act. You know, this Delegated Act will in particular complement provisions of the Basic Act on Rural Development, and this will concern several measures where we will specify further details. For example, we have this for the young farmers, where we will specify conditions as regards occupational skills, also what rules shall apply in case a young farmer sets up not as sole head of a holding. As regards the forest and farm visit measure, here we will also establish a certain link to the content and the duration, the quality schemes and promotion measure. Here we will have to provide some details which avoid discrimination between actors. For example, discrimination which could incur based off promotion which is linked to the geographical origin without providing any additional quality aspects. As regards the measure of farm and business development, we will be a little more specific on the role of the business plans and what we consider as the assessment of the progress of the business plan. And also, you know, we have a certain differentiation between farm business measures. We have to set thresholds which allow to distinguish between those measures. The following slides brings us more to the environmental measures. So here we will address the afforestation measure, where we, as in the past, will indicate certain minimum environmental conditions for afforestation. As regards the agri-environment climate measure, we will continue with the conditions as regards intensification measures on the farm, also for species in danger of being lost to farming. These are provisions which shall allow in the practical implementation, which will allow to the authorities to first of all design measures which then on the ground don't lead to the situation that on one part of the farm we will have an extensification and on the other part of the farm we will have an intensification. As regards the conservation of genetic resources, which is the more, let's say, scientific part of preserving genetic resources, we will specify the set of eligible operations, and we have been inspired very much by the current legal framework. The next provision related to double funding of practices under Article 29 was already mentioned in the welcome speech by Mr. Plever. Here we will establish rules which will avoid that greening practices which have been rewarded under the first pillar will be rewarded again under rural development, and we will establish rules for measures which are for equivalence and rules the same for organic farming and agri-environmental measures on the other hand. Animal welfare measure, as in the current period, we will specify those areas where we see a need to provide voluntary upgraded standards for which farmers then can be remunerated under the rural development programs. We will specify those areas in the Delegated Acts. As regards the cooperation measures, the Basic Act was not very much specific on certain terms which are important for the implementation of this measure, such as local markets, short supply chain, and small operations, and in all this also in the context of cooperation and promotion. So in the Delegated Acts we foresee a certain possibilities for member states to define local markets and short supply chains. Last but not least, under the Delegated Act there are certain more technical parts related to commercial loans which are relevant under the risk management measure, provisions related to investments, eligibility of leasing contracts, second-hand equipment, energy efficiency of projects, transitional provisions. So this is a sort of more technical part of the Delegated Act. I turn now over to the Implementing Act and the situation in the establishment of the Implementing Acts. We have had 3 rural development committees who have discussed on the basis of working documents or ideas. The next meeting is scheduled for the 19th of February. But I have to draw the attention to you that we can only vote the Implementing Act once the Delegated Act has been finalized and is into force. So therefore also for the Implementing Act we envisage a publication in July 2014. The Implementing Act, which comprises 17 articles and 7 annexes, is in particular related to the content of rural development. You find a very exhaustive annex here will describe what should be in the rural development programs of the regions and member states. So it's all about content. We also establish the rules as regards the adoption of programs, national frameworks, and their amendment. But we will also establish certain provisions which are more related to measures. You know that in the negotiations of the Basic Act, the matter of knowledge transfer, there was in particular also by the stakeholders, there was the idea brought up to use voucher systems. But as this is a kind of new approach under rural development, we were asked by member states to provide more details on what should be the minimum conditions for such a voucher system, and those conditions we will establish in the Implementing Acts. Also as regards the selection of authorities involved as or bodies, or private companies involved as service providers for knowledge, providing knowledge transfer, providing training, etc. Here we will also provide some clarity as regards what rules have to be applied. As regards environmental measures, we will specify the application of units for certain agri-environmental measures. For example, if you have agri-environmental measures related to meters of hedges, that we then have to convert them in a unit on which basis you can measure whether the thresholds of the regulation are respected. We have certain quality requirements as regards the premium calculation for certain measures, in particular the agri-environmental measures have to be mentioned, and here we again will provide, as in the past, some indications what are our expectations as regards certain standards for the calculation of those premiums. Combination of measures sounds abstract, but here what we mean is if you combine certain agri-environmental commitments and measures, or you combine different measures under the program, that you have to avoid overcompensation. And finally, we will have to establish with the implementing act the conditions for the work of national rural networks. We introduce conditions as regards information and publicity of rural development program, and there we are very much inspired by the conditions which are relevant for all European structural and investment funds. And we will specify the elements of our monitoring and evaluation system, which was extensively discussed in expert groups, the content of annual reports and the evaluation plan. That was a bit the state of play of the legal framework. As regards the partnership agreements, according to the latest information, but this changes every day, we have received officially 3 partnership agreements by Poland, France and Latvia, and we expect the majority to be submitted between January and March. Information observation letters have been sent, according to my information, to 25 member states. Rural development programs, we expect around 117 rural development programs. All member states, according to our knowledge, have already started with SWOT analysis, ex-ante evaluations, etc. The submission of drafts has started, so colleagues are in the process to discuss with you informal drafts, but we expect that the majority of drafts will come this spring. And to conclude, we have a lot of work ahead. Establishing the legal framework is only one part of implementing the policy. The other part, and which I think is also a very important part, is ahead of us. And thank you very much.